And now, an exclusive sneak preview of a recent X Talks webinar, Reference Standard Management for Pharmaceutical Development.
Now, I'd also like to discuss some general recommendations of testing needed to qualify reference standards. And note that these are recommendations because there really aren't clear-cut regulations or guidelines on exactly what testing should be included. And that's partly because it depends so much on the material that you're working with. There are some guidances for drug substances in ICH Q6A and Q7, which can be extrapolated to reference standards in some case, so some people like to go by that. Another general comment I'll make about a drug development program is that in the beginning, I would hope that someone would want to fully characterize the material completely, hitting it with every test you can think of, just so that that's all known for a new drug. And you'll have that information to refer back to. Going forward, though, each time you qualify a new lot of reference standard for that drug, it wouldn't necessarily be required to go through every single test again. You just need to do enough tests to confirm the identity beyond a shadow of a doubt and to be confident in the quality and purity of the material. So my recommendation for a primary reference standard would be to do at least 2 identity confirmation tests. At least one of those should provide structural confirmation, such as proton NMR. That's a great test to use. FTIR and UV can also be great if you have historic spectra for comparison. MS is great as a secondary test to confirm the molecular weight of a material. But of course, it can't be used by itself for identity confirmation because it doesn't give any structural information. Continuing as far as testing goes, elemental analysis is another great test for comparison to the theoretical carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen content. Also, depending on the properties of the material, confirming those physical properties may be appropriate. Visual confirmation of physical appearance will nearly always be seen as part of a reference standard retest program, partly because it is specifically called out in ICH Q6A, but also because it's just so easy to gather that information along with the other tests that are being performed. XRPD for the crystal form, if you have a drug substance that can exist in multiple crystal forms and you know that those need to be monitored, it may be appropriate to confirm that information for your reference standard as well. TGA for melting or boiling point are also great ways to just confirm the physical properties of the material. Now, getting into purity testing, chemical purity is, of course, typically the most critical test for your standard. That's usually an HPLC or UHPLC analysis, sometimes GC, or even sometimes QNMR. And that will typically encompass both your process impurities and your degradation products. In addition to that, it's also important to quantify known or suspected impurities. So a Karl-Fischer titration for water is very commonly done. GC analysis of residual solvents and ICP-MS for elemental impurities are also very commonly done. They're also guidance that's called out in ICH. So the other thing finally is if your molecule is chiral, then chiral purity would also be an appropriate assessment to perform for your reference standard.
To view the entirety of this webinar, visit the link in the description and register on xtalks.com completely free of charge.